If you're hearing this, then there's still a chance, however small, that what got out can be put back. Contained. Buried, burned, whatever it takes. Just know this much first, I didn't ask for any of it. I wasn't chasing secrets, or trying to be a hero, or some reckless idiot poking at things better left alone. I took this job because I was out of options. Because being desperate does something to your judgment. It blurs the line between survival and surrender. I'd been out of the Air Force less than a year. Medical leave. My knees were wrecked. My shoulder didn't sit right in its socket anymore, and I had more headaches than I could count. Nobody wanted to hire a broken ex-sergeant with attitude issues and a discharge on her record. I burned through my savings just trying to stay afloat. Warehouse shifts. A short stint working graveyards at a hotel where the plumbing sounded like screaming. Once, I pulled a full week guarding a construction site that had nothing worth stealing except the porta potties. Nothing stuck. Not until I met the man in the suit. It was nearly 2 a.m. I was sitting outside a Waffle House, chain-smoking clove cigarettes I didn't even like, and wondering if I had enough gas in my car to make it to my sister's clinic by morning. That's when he walked up. No noise, no warning, just a guy in a clean gray suit, holding a manila folder like it was a peace offering. He didn't ask my name, he already knew it. Lottie Reynolds? I almost said no on instinct. He didn't look like a recruiter, didn't look like anything, really. Plain, forgettable, government forgettable. He handed me the folder. You're not scared, are you? I blinked. Scared of what? He smiled, but there was nothing behind it. No warmth. Just the vague impression that he'd asked that question before, to a lot of people who didn't make it. You'll see, he said. Then he turned and walked away. Inside the folder was a non-disclosure agreement, a blank check with my name already printed, and a black business card. No name, just a circular emblem that looked like a serpent eating itself. Except it wasn't. Not exactly. The head had too many eyes and the tail had teeth. I didn't sign right away. I went home, read the fine print, read it again. The next morning, I was on a helicopter bound for Nevada. Vanta Station wasn't listed on any official map. There were no signs, no airfield markings. The elevator down took nearly 4 minutes, long enough for the silence to start pressing against your eardrums. There were no buttons, no indicator lights. When the doors opened, the air hit me like a wall. Cold, dry, sterile. I stepped out into a concrete hallway lit by long, flickering strips of fluorescent light. No color, no sound except the soft hum of air systems buried in the walls. There was a receptionist. She didn't smile, just handed me a badge and pointed down the hall. Orientation, room B7. No welcome packet, no small talk, just a sense of gravity, like I was standing in a place where jokes couldn't survive. The official cover story was simple: biological containment, high-risk virology, government lab work. But nothing about this place felt like science. In the orientation briefing, I was shown footage of Level 3, a maze of reinforced doors, each labeled with a number. Nothing more. No names, just numbers. What are you containing? I asked. The woman leading the briefing, a tight-faced lieutenant in a lab coat that didn't quite fit, didn't answer. She clicked to the next slide, showed me fire suppression systems, full-room incinerators, steel vents the size of coffins. I looked closer. There were flamethrowers mounted in the ceiling, not gas lines. Flamethrowers. This isn't a virus lab, I said. Her eyes met mine, and for just a second, I saw something there. Something that flickered between fear and exhaustion. No, she said. It's not. They moved me to the living quarters after that. My bunk was a concrete cubicle with a single bed, a locker, and a mounted screen that didn't respond to touch. There were 3 others on night shift with me. Hector, a tall, grizzled vet who looked like he hadn't blinked in 10 years. He had scars across both hands and spoke with the calm certainty of someone who'd seen worse and learned to live with it. We clicked fast. He reminded me of my old CO, strict but honest. Riley, barely 25, full of nervous energy and questions she never actually asked. She carried a tiny flashlight even in lit hallways and wore 3 rubber bands on her wrist that she snapped when she was stressed. And Halverson, big guy, Scandinavian, maybe. Thick neck, thicker arms, spoke only when he had to, and even then it felt like he was measuring each word for weight. I never once saw him laugh. They were the live containment crew. We patrolled the lower levels, monitored cell activity, and enforced the rules. And the rules? They were the only thing that mattered. Each of the 103 cells had its own set of instructions posted on a laminated sheet outside the door. Some were straightforward, others felt like riddles or dares. I saw one that simply read, "Do not whistle within 20 feet of this cell. If you must pass by, plug your ears and do not blink." But the real backbone of the job was the facility-wide rules. They were printed in massive font and bolted to every hallway junction. Like commandments, like warnings. I'll get to those. But that first night, my head was spinning too hard to absorb half of what they told me. I shadowed Hector on rounds, trying not to stare at the cells, trying not to listen too closely to what came from behind them. He stopped in front of one with no markings, just a blank steel door that seemed heavier than the rest. "Don't look too long," he said, "it notices." I swallowed and nodded, but my eyes stayed on it a second too long. I felt cold, not physically, something else. Like the air in my lungs wasn't mine anymore. When my shift ended, I didn't sleep. I lay on the cot, staring at the flickering screen, listening to the faint groan of metal shifting somewhere behind the walls. I kept replaying what Hector said. "It notices." And that was when I knew. This wasn't a prison. Not really. This was a bargain. And the rules? They were the price we paid for keeping the monsters in their cells. The rules weren't decorations. That's the first thing Hector told me when I asked why they were plastered everywhere, on every hallway wall, every security checkpoint, every stairwell door. He didn't even look up from his clipboard. "They're warnings," he said. "Ignore 'em, and something eats you." I thought he was being dramatic, until Cell 17 screamed for the first time. There were 7 facility-wide rules posted at every major junction in Vanta Station. At first, I figured it was bureaucracy doing what bureaucracy does, overposting safety instructions to protect against lawsuits no one would ever be able to file. But that theory died quick. I was still new, still adjusting to the sounds. The subtle hum of the air vents, the low creaks of metal expanding, the distant tapping that could have been a loose pipe or something much worse. I'd started carrying a notepad, scribbling down the rules again and again so I could memorize them faster. Rule 1 was easy to remember. Rule 1, greet Cell 17 every hour on the hour. Literally just say hello, Riley told me. We rotate, 1 guard per hour. What happens if we skip it? She looked at me with this haunted expression I didn't recognize yet, but I would. We all got that look eventually. "It cries," she said softly, "and it doesn't stop." That night, I walked up to the steel door with the painted 17 and the speaker grill embedded near the top. My watch ticked over. I leaned in and said, "Hello, number 17. The speaker crackled faintly, then fell silent. I blinked. Did I do it wrong? Hector, standing behind me, shook his head. "You did fine." We moved on. Halfway through the next sector, we heard it. A sound so soft it was almost a breath. A whimper, maybe. Then it rose. Delicate at first, like a child trying not to cry, but failing. It vibrated through the walls, through the floor, through our teeth. It didn't just get louder. It got closer, like the sound itself was walking toward us. Hector swore and broke into a run. "Did someone miss a greeting?" I asked, trying to keep up. "No," he growled. "They forgot the second one." We rounded the corner and found Jones, another night guard, leaning against the wall near another cell with number 17. Blood seeping from both ears. Muttering to himself, his lips were moving but nothing coherent came out. Just his mother's name, over and over again. We tried to help, tried to talk to him, but when we looked away for half a second to call for medical, he was gone. No sound, no struggle, just gone. All that was left was the blood. Rule 2, if you hear a voice calling your name and you're alone, do not answer. Especially if it sounds like your mother. This one's worse. You'd think ignoring a voice would be simple. But the entities in cells 34-38, what everyone unofficially called the skinwalkers, knew how to get inside your head. The one in cell 36 was the worst. It learned, adapted. They said it didn't have a face, just a blank space where one should be. But somehow it knew how to copy voices, and not just in sound but in feeling, in emotion. One night, Riley was on solo patrol in Sector D. I was watching from the security booth, checking off her route on the monitor. I saw her pause mid-step like someone had called her name. She turned, head tilted, eyes wide with disbelief. She smiled. That's when I knew something was wrong. I buzzed the comm. "Riley? "You good?" She didn't respond, just whispered, "Claire?" Her sister's name. Later she told me the voice had come from the vents, calm, sweet. Her sister had been missing for 2 years, presumed dead after a hiking accident. Riley had never stopped hoping, she answered. The next day, Cell 36's door unlatched on its own. The override code appeared on the system log, even though no one typed it. We watched the live feed as something stepped out. It looked exactly like Riley, except for the eyes. They were pitch black, voids that pulled light inward. The real Riley stood beside me in the booth, frozen. The mimic turned and stared straight into the camera. Then it grinned. The flamethrowers activated 2 minutes later. The thing didn't scream as it burned. It just kept looking at us. Rule 3, do not enter Cell 42 for any reason. Even if it's open, especially if you hear someone begging for help. Cell 42 should not exist. That's not a metaphor. It literally wasn't on the original blueprints. One day it was just there, a door where none had been before. No hinges, no weld lines, just a matte white panel with a soft yellow glow beneath it, like a nightlight leaking under the crack. Inside was a perfect replica of a child's bedroom. Not a simulation, a perfect room. Soft blue walls, wooden toy chest, hand-drawn artwork taped to the closet door. A twin bed with cartoon dinosaur sheets, a nightlight shaped like a smiling moon. No one built it, it appeared. The first time we opened it, we sent in a containment officer with a body cam. He stepped over the threshold and was gone. No flash, no scream, just gone. The body cam stayed on. The video showed the room, quiet, still. But something was different. A new pair of shoes sat at the edge of the bed, adult-sized, blood-soaked. Every now and then, the nightlight flickers. Sometimes it sings. Once I heard it hum the birthday song. I haven't slept properly since. By my 3rd week, I knew the rules like scripture. I repeated them under my breath during patrols. Taped a copy above my bunk. Riley made flashcards for fun, except it wasn't fun. Nothing here ever really was. The truth was, these rules weren't designed to control the entities. They were designed to appease them. We weren't jailers. We were sacrifices on rotation. Not every entity was violent. Some of them were just broken. There were monsters in that place, real ones. Some you could talk to, some you couldn't understand. Some wore faces you loved, others never needed a face at all. I used to believe monsters were just metaphors. I thought they were how we explained the darkness, mental illness, trauma, addiction. I thought the only real monsters wore suits or uniforms or walked away from explosions they caused. But then I started working the lower levels of Vanta Station, and I learned that metaphors don't leave claw marks in steel doors. Each of the 103 cells at Vanta was numbered, locked, and cataloged. That was the illusion of order. Neat columns on spreadsheets, code names, clearance levels. But walking the hallways at night, hearing the metal creak and shift behind those doors, you realized, fast, we weren't in control. Not really. We were just buying time. Every cell had its own feel, its own weight. Some of them buzzed faintly, like old electronics left plugged in too long. Others radiated cold. Not the kind that made you shiver, but the kind that crawled inside your chest and told you to turn around. You never stayed in front of a cell too long. That was unwritten rule number 1. Some of the things we kept, you could squint and see where myth had grown from truth. They had a shape your brain could wrap around. And that made them even more dangerous, because it made you think they could be reasoned with. Take Colin, for example. Cell 12. Steel-reinforced walls, 24-hour sedation protocol, and a custom alloy barrier made of silver and glass. Looked like a bulletproof zoo enclosure with surgical lights above. Colin was a werewolf, or something very close. When he was lucid, which happened maybe once every 10 days for a few hours, he'd ask questions, intelligent ones. Did you get the new crossword? Is it snowing topside? What's the stock market doing? He'd been a university professor once, mythology and literature. He liked quiet, jazz music, books. Said he hated Hemingway but would take Steinbeck if we had it. One night while I was logging his vitals, he pressed his hand against the glass and said, "I still remember what it feels like to be loved." Then his pupils dilated, and he whispered, "I remember what it feels like to rip someone apart too." I didn't look at him after that. Not directly. And then there were the ones that couldn't be explained. Cell 59 was one of those. We called it the Harpist. No one knew its real name. Or if it had one, its body was vaguely human, tall, thin, gaunt in the way that makes you think of famine victims or mannequins left in the sun too long. It had no eyes, just sunken skin where eyes should be. Its fingers were long and tapered into pointed ends, more like chisels than bone. But the worst part? The thing that made you want to run the second you got near? Its ribs. They vibrated, not like breathing, like strings being plucked. When it hummed, those ribs would resonate and sing. The sound wasn't music, it was pressure. It bent the air, it slid under your skin and made your vision blur. One night, the internal audio system glitched. A soft hum came through the speakers. At first it was almost pleasant, low, vibrating, rhythmic. But it didn't stop. After 6 minutes, a junior tech named Doll was found in the break room, curled into a fetal position with blood running from both ears. His hands were broken, every finger shattered. We think he was trying to claw the sound out of his skull. The audio system was replaced the next day, triple fail-safes, but no one went near cell 59 unless absolutely necessary. Even Hector. Cell 63 was harder to describe, mostly because it didn't stay one thing. We called it the borrower. When it was at rest, it looked like a pile of clothes. Torn jackets, scarves, rags, layered and tangled like someone had dumped a Goodwill bin into a heap. But there were teeth, sewn into the fabric, random places. None of them matched. It didn't move on its own, not visibly, but when someone spoke nearby, it would mimic them. Exactly. 5 seconds behind. You'd say, "Everything's secure in this wing," and 5 seconds later, you'd hear your own voice say the same thing, but slower. Not a perfect match, not like a parrot or an echo. It was like something was trying to learn what being human sounded like by listening too closely. One night, the lights flickered. Just a blip, half a second. When they came back on, the cell was empty. I swear my heart stopped. We initiated breach protocol, closed the blast doors, sealed the vents. The borrower had slipped under the door, more liquid than solid somehow, like fabric soaked in blood. It moved silently until it didn't, and then it chattered. That's what the sound was, chattering, like laughter caught in a blender. Hector lost a toe cornering it. We got it back in with a UV rig and flamethrower threat. After that, I asked for the vents in my room to be welded shut. They said I was being paranoid. I didn't care. But all of that, all the broken bones, the mimics, the things that wore your voice like a costume, it was nothing compared to Cell 99. The others at least had shape, voice. Cell 99 had silence. That was its weapon. Its door was darker than the others, not in paint or material. It just looked darker, like the light bent around it a little too far. It had no window, no microphone, no camera feed. The walls were layered with dense metals and something else, something oily and iridescent that shimmered under blacklight. No name, no origin file, no known form, just 3 rules. Rule 4, never refer to Cell 99 by name inside the facility. Rule 5, do not dream of Cell 99. If you do, report it immediately. Rule 6, if something knocks 3 times from inside Cell 99, evacuate. Immediately. No one joked about those rules. Ever. You could talk trash about Colin when he wasn't lucid. Make dumb skinwalker jokes on break. Even throw a side-eye at the harpist's cell and mutter something about banshees on a diet, but no one said a damn word about 99. One time during rounds, I got curious. I stopped outside its cell and stared. The air got heavier. Not colder, heavier, like I was standing underwater. My lungs burned. My fingers went numb. I saw something move at the edge of my vision and flinched so hard I dropped my clipboard. Then the lights flickered, and I heard my own voice whisper, "Don't look." I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. Riley told me she dreamed about it once. She woke up sobbing, clutching her chest, saying the walls were whispering, saying she saw something inside the room sitting cross-legged in the dark, staring at her. She didn't report it. I wish she had. Hector? He said nothing at all, but he started carrying a second flashlight, the kind with a backup battery. He never told me why, but I think he knew. He'd been here the longest. He'd seen the cracks form before anyone else. He knew that Cell 99 wasn't just dangerous, it was waiting. It started like 100 other nights. Riley handed me a cup of bad coffee with too much powdered creamer and 1 sugar packet folded in half. Her hand trembled a little as she passed it to me, which wasn't unusual by then. We were all on edge, sleep-deprived, wired. "Same patrol?" she asked, trying for casual. "Same dance," I said, taking a sip. Hope you brought your lucky socks." She cracked a weak smile. "I brought 3 pairs, one for each circle of hell." We laughed, because the alternative was crying. Halverson had already left on patrol. Quiet as usual. The guy moved like a boulder in boots, but somehow made less noise than Riley did breathing. Hector was in the observation booth, scanning monitors and mumbling about dead pixels again. I headed towards Sector D, clipboard in hand, heart thudding a little too loud in my ears. That was when the alarm started. A harsh mechanical scraping that shook the walls and turned every hallway light blood red. "Breach. Cell 31. Containment failure." The words blinked across the walls in giant red letters. I dropped my coffee. Cell 31 wasn't one of the high-risk cells, at least not on paper. But nobody liked going near it. Whatever was inside made the air feel thick. The thing in there, it moved like it was always mid-fall. Like someone had assembled a body from spare bones and tangled it in wet ropes of hair, then taught it how to crawl without ever teaching it to walk. It hadn't broken containment in over a year. That night, it got out in under 30 seconds. Riley and I moved fast. I grabbed my tranq rifle from the locker near Sector C. She followed, fumbling her baton, eyes wide. "Where's Halverson?" I asked. No response. Hector buzzed through the comms. "Signal cut out near Cell 50. You've got 90 seconds before the blast doors seal." We sprinted. I heard it before I saw it. This awful crunch-snap rhythm, like wet branches being twisted in the dark. The thing was halfway down the hallway, dragging its body like it didn't know what direction forward was supposed to be. Riley hit it first, tranq dart to the neck. It screamed. A horrible, static-coded scream that sounded like a radio tuning through white noise. I didn't hesitate. Second dart. Right between what passed for its shoulder blades. It twitched violently, then collapsed. Halverson came in from the far side and kicked it once for good measure. "Secure it." Hector barked through the comms. "Get it back inside, now." We wrapped it in a containment net, reinforced silver threads woven with pressure-reactive sensors. Dragged it back into Cell 31 and locked the door just as the blast shutters slammed into place behind us. Breathless, sweating but alive. We logged the breach as contained. Minimal injuries, no fatalities. That should have been it. But it wasn't. We didn't realize until hours later that something much worse had happened. Cell 99's power had gone offline for exactly 10 seconds. Not a full shutdown, not even a failure alert, just a temporary surge override from the generator reroute. No one noticed in the moment. We were too busy cleaning up the aftermath of Cell 31, checking Riley's arm for bruises, securing the netting, logging timestamps. But that 10 seconds, that was enough. The first sign came the next night. Riley didn't show up for shift change. She was always early, always double-checked her boots, flashlight, and gear before anyone else even got out of bed. So when she wasn't in the mess by 21, Hector started calling her name over the comms. No answer. I found her 30 minutes later, curled into a ball between cells 80 and 90, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes unfocused and twitching. She was rocking back and forth, whispering to herself over and over, "It saw me, it saw me, it saw me." Her voice was flat, distant, like a scratched record. I crouched down slowly. "Riley, what saw you?" She blinked, and for a second I thought she saw me, really saw me. But then her eyes rolled back slightly and she shook her head like a child refusing medicine. It was inside, but it was already out. It said my name, it used my voice. I got her to medical, but she never came back to her post. That was her last shift. She stopped speaking entirely 3 days later. Then the systems began to glitch. It started small, lights flickering near Sector E, camera feeds freezing, then snapping back with a 1-second delay. But the malfunctions followed a pattern. They were all happening near Cell 99. One of the monitors in the observation booth stopped working completely. I offered to swap it out. When I hooked up the new one, it flickered to life, paused for a moment, then showed my own face staring back at me. Except I wasn't in that hallway. I was standing 2 floors above, holding a wrench, looking at the supply closet. But the monitor showed me turning slowly and smiling. I yanked the power cable out and threw the monitor across the room. Hector didn't say a word. He just put a fresh one on the shelf and handed me a coffee. We both pretended it didn't happen. He told me later he'd heard his daughter's voice, over the intercom, clear as day. "Daddy, are you there?" She'd been dead 3 years. Drunk driver. Funeral with a closed casket. He said he sat there for 5 whole minutes before he picked up the receiver, and then he didn't answer. He just turned off the speaker and cried. Then came the rule. We didn't get a system alert. No email, no call from topside. Someone had physically taped it to the wall between sectors B and C. A single sheet of printer paper. 7 words. All caps. Rule 7. Do not open the red door. We stared at it for 10 minutes. Hector ran UV over it. No signatures. No fingerprints. Where the hell did this come from, I asked. No idea, he said, but I believe it. There was no red door at Vanta Station. Not then. But the next night, it appeared. We found it right next to cell 99. Flush against the wall. Perfectly centered. Seamless red metal, darker than blood. No hinges, no knob. Just a keypad and 1 word etched across the surface. Welcome. It hadn't been there the day before. I was sure of it. I passed that hallway every shift. There had been nothing but concrete. We tried to access the keypad. Denied. We checked security footage. The wall showed static for 11 minutes. Then, pop, the door was there. Hector's hands were shaking. That night, Halverson disappeared. He said he was going to run a diagnostic on the backup generator near Sector F. We never saw him again. His security badge was found outside the red door. The keypad was smeared with blood. System logs showed a single successful clearance entry. Halverson S. No exit recorded. Then we lost Riley. At 4:17, her badge scanned the red door. She hadn't spoken in days. No one saw her leave medical. She was just gone. The facility sealed itself soon after. No response from topside. No comms. No emergency extraction. No override from the mainframe. Hector and I were the only ones left. He handed me a flash drive one night. Black, labeled in marker, unreported. If I disappear, he said, or worse, get this out. Burn it if you have to. Just don't let the brass bury it. Don't let them lie about what's down here. I didn't argue. I didn't ask what was on it. I should have. He went on patrol 2 hours later. I watched him on the monitors. Calm, steady, moving past cell 50, 60, 70. Then the feed on cam 9 blinked. The red door opened. Something walked out. It looked like Hector. Same clothes, same scar, same walk. But the eyes weren't right. Too wide, too bright. It looked straight at the camera. Then it raised its hand and waved, then it smiled. Now it's walking the halls. It passed my door 20 minutes ago. I didn't breathe. I don't think it saw me, but maybe it didn't care. Maybe it already knows I'm here. And the worst part? The red door is still open.